So let me pause right there because there's a few gems that you dropped. One you talked about knowing what you were up against as
Yeah.
far as you know the other people that will be interviewing for these are probably going to be coming from maybe Harvard, these
Yes.
top-notch business schools where they have resources that you may not don't have or may
Mm-hmm.
not have. Knowing that and still being able to prepare at almost the same level, if not better, by going out and getting a coach, getting into these message boards or groups with other people that are in that same situation, and just practicing and going back and forth, and you know getting yourself to that level of preparedness at where they will probably also be.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was awesome because a lot of people going for you know interviews or trying to switch things don't necessarily always understand what they're up against in these job markets. Secondly, I think it was important what you had said something else about. You wrote down your the reason why you were leaving. You were looking to leave the current job and what you hope to gain when you in the new job. Can you share what you hope to gain?
Sure. I hope to gain three main things. Number one, I wanted a more rigorous approach to problem solving. So at the first job, I was just like, managing all, you know, I I felt like there had to be like, what's the best practice approach to tackling problems? I just wanted to more rigorous approach, like a structured, I wanted that kind of training. Second thing I wanted, I was very curious, like consulting firms advise many of the largest companies, governments, frankly. I mean, so I was curious, like, what are these major CEOs on boards? What's on their mind? What are they thinking about? What kind of problems are they dealing with? I wanted to know, I was just curious.
Right.
And then the third thing was I wanted to develop a toolkit that could potentially lead me out of oil and gas if I so desired. Because again, this whole roller coaster, that
Gotcha.
on my first job, just seeing the cuts was
Yeah.
um it's eye-opening until this day. Like I'm like, that was
Right.
crazy.
Right.
So I wanted to develop a toolkit that could potentially lead me out of that industry.
Right. Nice. Nice.
Those are
Nice.
the three things.
Nice. And so you get into this job in a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Then how was that? What did
How
you?
did that go?
Yeah.
It was it was and it was challenging.
What was
Um
the first part of that? We're
it
cutting
was
out a
great.
little bit.
It was great and it was
Okay.
challenging.
Okay.
So I mean, so many thoughts at the same time. So my experience was unique because again, I joined in the energy group. I joined like in March. Whereas most people join consulting firms, they join like after business school or law school or PhD programs, and they start in the fall. And many of them, they have interned already, so they already have like their contacts, their friends, which is great. I just started in March, so it's like off cycle and non-traditional. Um, for me, it was, I went in there thinking, yeah, I can make some pretty good PowerPoint slides and pretty good Excel models. I quickly learned that there are levels to this thing. I was a neophyte, I didn't know it. And it's
I
one of
don't
those,
even. Go ahead.
yeah,
What
it's
were you
one
saying?
of those things where like, it's one of those things where you're like a local champion, but you don't know it.
Yep. Yep.
So it's nice to go play in a place where there is a way to do things that's really thought out, and people who are sharp, it just helps raise your game. um I learned so much more than I imagined in terms of like communication, in terms of just organizing my thoughts, in fact being very structured. Like it's impacted even the way I'm talking to you today. It's there are things in it. You'll notice me, I'll have like the three takeaways, for example. Those are That's consulting coaching right there.
Wow.
um, like how to approach things. it's also given me, it also gave me confidence that I can analyze a problem. And I think engineering education teaches you that if you just persevere and you keep attacking a problem, you can solve it eventually, right? I think consulting also gives you that kind of confidence that like you can figure out what are the key drivers of situation and figure out ways to turn things to improve a situation. You know? So I've been a bit vague. I'll get a bit more tactical now. So for me, everyone's experience in a consulting firm is extremely unique, obviously, right? And basically, for most of my experience, I was working on teams of like about 4 people. Um, and we are basically tasked with solving a problem. So sometimes it could be like a strategy problem. Maybe it could be like someone is trying to buy another company. Maybe it's like a procurement problem. So I'll give you more examples. So like, let's say, I'm going to make up an example to be clear. This is not real, but it could be. So let's say Exxon was thinking about buying Chevron. Well, let's say Exxon was saying, let's say the board of Exxon, which is a big oil company, they said, okay, we need to grow. We need to accelerate our growth. And so then I bring my company and say, okay, how can you accelerate your growth? And you can either grow organically or you can grow inorganically by acquiring someone. So either of those options is a consulting project. We can work with them to help you figure out, here's how you can grow effectively to reach your goals. Or if you want to buy someone, okay, here are the opportunities, here's what makes sense for you to consider, here's, that sort of thing. So it was wonderful training, wonderful exposure to the world of business. Like for me, it was almost like my business school. I don't have an MBA till today, but I can hang with them.
Nice. That's amazing. That is, and obviously me and you have had, these discussions one-on-one, but it's amazing that you were able to get that from this.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there as far as consulting?
So I did it for a couple, almost 3 years, just over 3 years, and it's hard in terms of, it can be hard in terms of like lifestyle. For me, most of the time I was traveling. I fly out either Sunday nights or Monday morning, and I fly back home on Thursday nights or Friday every
Right.
week.
Wow.
And so it can be challenging on relationships. It can be challenging in terms of fitness. I know I gained 10, 15 pounds. I have buddies who've gained 50 over a couple of years, not just in 1 year.
Yeah.
But so it can be, and for me, I wasn't convinced that, I got curious. I mean, I felt like I was on the outside looking in a bit. Like I would offer recommendations to come to our clients, and that's it. Like, were the recommendations executed? Sometimes. Were they executed fully? Sometimes, maybe not. And so for me, I started getting curious about being closer to the action,
Gotcha.
as opposed to like advising people. That was one thing. The other thing was like the travel at that point in time was getting a bit, and for me, my mind was also extra because I was in a long distance relationship. And so I was traveling for work, and on the weekend, I see my then girlfriend, now wife, but then I'd go to New York, I go to Boston. Then I just felt I was everywhere. Like I was always, it felt very unsettled, always in a plane, literally every 3, 4 days. Or sometimes like it was a lot. So so we decided to move on. And recently, this has happened like in the last couple of months. And so now I've joined a different company, new industry in financial services.